Hi, in this video we are going to introduce the unit circle and discuss how to find values of all 6 trigonometric functions for some selected angles. So what is a unit circle? It's a circle whose radius is 1 unit and it is going to be centered at the origin. So it looks like this. It has these two x-intercepts, 1, 0, -1, 0, and y-intercepts 0, 1, 0, -1. So when we deal with an angle, let's start with pi over 6. So pi over 6 is going to be an angle going like this. And what we do is we realize that the radius here is 1. And then the triangle that's formed here, here's what's going to happen. For this particular point that we can find its coordinates, what do we know? We know that for this angle theta, which in this case is pi over 6, we can say that sine of an angle, of this angle theta, is going to be opposite. Let me call this coordinate, this is going to be x, this is going to be y. So the value of sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, which is y over 1, which is going to be simply y. What's going to happen with cosine? So cosine of angle theta is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be x divided by 1, which simply is going to equal x. Okay, again, we have a right triangle here, and if the hypotenuse is 1, because it's the radius of the unit circle, what we have here is this coordinate is going to correspond to the x coordinate of the point, and this coordinate is going to correspond to the y coordinate of this point. And these coordinates also come up as we try to evaluate the values of sine and cosine of a specific angle. So that means when we find sine of pi over 6, which we should know is 1/2, and when we find cosine of pi over 6, which we know is square root of 3 over 2, hopefully you know these by now, then the coordinate of the point on the circle that is right there is going to be square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. Okay, and then you can find all the remaining values. So we know that tangent of pi over 6 is going to be square root of 3 over 3. We know that cotangent pi over 6 is going to be square root of 3. We know that secant of pi over 6, hopefully you know all these values by now. Secant of pi over 6 is going to be 2, and cosecant of pi over 6, which is the reciprocal of sine. Hold on, this one is 2 square root of 3 over 3, and this one is 2. Okay, because secant is the reciprocal of cosine, and cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Alright, so these are our values, but the important thing is that these two values of sine and cosine are the ones that you need to know, and then from those you can always find the remaining values. Okay, let's take a look at another angle. So our next angle is pi over 3. So pi over 3 is here. I'm going to model this one more time. This is angle pi over 3. This is our triangle. So this is our x, this is our y, this is 1 because it's the unit circle. So we know that sine of pi over 3 is going to equal to the value of x, right? Which sine of pi over 3 is going to be square root of 3 over 2. So cosine of pi over 3 is going to be 1/2, right? And we know that sine corresponds to the y coordinate, right? And cosine corresponds to x coordinates, so that means that this point is going to have coordinates 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. Okay? So now we're going to find the remaining 4, and I'm also going to address what we do once we leave the first quadrant. So tangent pi over 3 is going to be square root of 3. Cotangent pi over 3 is going to be square root of 3 over 3. Secant pi over 3 is going to be 2. and cosecant pi over 3 is going to be 2 square root of 3 over 3. So we can use right triangles for as long as we stay inside quadrant 1. But what happens when we are either using a quadrantal angle or go outside of it? Angle is pi over 2. So what do we know? We know that sine of that angle is going to correspond to the coordinate of a point, the y-coordinate of a point on the unit circle. So it's going to be sine pi over 2 is going to be the y-coordinate of that point, because that is our angle pi over 2. Remember, we cannot model this with a triangle because it's not an acute angle. But the value of sine is going to be the y-coordinate, which is going to be 1. The value of cosine of angle pi over 2 is going to be the x-coordinate, which is going to be 0. What about tangent? Well, tangent is sine over cosine. We need to be very careful with dividing 1 by 0. 1 divided by 0 is going to be undefined. This value is undefined. What about cotangent pi over 2? For cotangent pi over 2, we're going to get 0 divided by 1, and that is 0. For secant pi over 2, which is the reciprocal of cosine, that's going to be undefined as well. And for cosecant pi over 2, it's going to be the reciprocal of sine, which is 1. So you see, now we're leaving right triangles, acute angles, but we can still, by understanding the unit circle, we can still figure out all the remaining values. Let's go ahead and leave the quadrant 1 completely, and we're going to be in quadrant 2. So we're here, right? And we're talking about this point. So we're talking about this angle here, 3 pi over 4. Right? That's not even possible to have a right triangle like this, yet we can still find it. So the value of sine is going to be of 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4 is going to be square root of 2 over 2. Right? The value of cosine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be negative square root of 2 over 2, right? So those are the coordinates of the point on the unit circle. It's going to be negative square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. And this is what you often see on the unit circle, what these values are. Tangent of 3 pi over 4 is going to be negative 1. Cotangent of 3 pi over 4 is also going to be negative 1. Secant 3 pi over 4 is going to be reciprocal of cosine, which is negative square root of 2, and cosecant of 3 pi over 4 is going to be square root of 2. Okay. Angle is pi. So remember, again, we have a situation when it's no longer in a triangle because pi is equivalent to 180 degrees. That's it, we maxed out on triangles. So what do we know about the value of sine? It's going to correspond to the y-coordinate of the point on the unit circle. So 180, or pi, is right here. The y-coordinate here is 0. That means sine pi is going to be 0. And cosine pi corresponds to the x-coordinate, and that's going to be negative 1. And now we can do all the rest of them. So, we're doing tangent pi. That is going to be 0 divided by negative 1, which is 0. Cotangent pi is going to be negative 1 divided by 0, which is undefined. Secant pi is the reciprocal of cosine, which is also negative 1. And cosecant pi is the reciprocal of sine, which is going to be undefined. Hopefully it's becoming easier to understand now. Angle 4 pi over 3. Angle 4 pi over 3 is going to be right here. This is our angle 4 pi over 3. So sine of 4 pi over 3 is going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. cosine of 4 pi over 3 is going to be -1/2. This can all be based on using that triangle here to figure out these values, which is what we call something called reference angle. For tangent 4 pi over 3, we're going to have reciprocal of sine over cosine, which is going to be square root of 3. Cotangent 4 pi over 3 is going to be the reciprocal of no, it's going to be the reciprocal of this, so square root of 3 over 3. Secant 4 pi over 3 is going to be -2, the reciprocal of cosine, and cosecant of 4 pi over 3 is going to be the reciprocal of sine, which is going to be -2 square root of 3 over 3. And again, the point on the unit circle that we have is going to have coordinates -1/2, -square root of 3 over 2. So this is the value of cosine, this is the value of sine. Okay. And one more example, 11 pi over 6. 11 pi over 6 is the angle is going to be right about here. This is 11 pi over 6. We're almost completing a full revolution. So the question is, what are these values? So we're going to have sine of 11 pi over 6, which is going to be -1/2. Cosine of 11 pi over 6 is going to be square root of 3 over 2. So that point on the unit circle is going to have coordinates square root of 3 over 2, -1/2. Right. And then we can go ahead and do the other one. So tangent of 11 pi over 6 is going to be -square root of 3 over 3. Cotangent of 11 pi over 6 is going to be -square root of 3. Secant, which is the reciprocal of cosine of 11 pi over 6, is going to be 2 square root of 3 over 3. And cosecant of 11 pi over 6 is going to equal to -2. Okay, so this is the idea behind the unit circle and how the values that you will see on the unit circle are going to be interpreted, and how they can help you find all the values of all trigonometric functions. So that's what it usually looks like. You're going to see this circle. This is a unit circle. It's going to have all these points labeled. So like when I'm looking at this point, the first coordinate, the x coordinate, is going to give me the value of cosine of that angle, and the second coordinate, the y coordinate, is going to give me the value of sine. So it's cosine, sine. Okay, and then you can find tangent by taking sine over cosine, cotangent cosine over sine, find secant by taking the reciprocal of cosine, and cosecant by taking the reciprocal of sine. And that's what this unit circle is for. And I hope this was helpful.